6 spine-chilling true stories exposed in the haunted darkness of midnight's sinister secrets. Sarah could hardly breathe as the air thickened with the weight of memory and dread. It had been a long day, a 12-hour shift, the fluorescent lights buzzing like insects, the sickly smell of antiseptic clinging to her scrubs. Now, in the semi-darkness of her home, she felt the shadows pressed against her. Her daughter Mia was tucked into bed, and for the first time in what felt like ages, silence wrapped around her like a warm blanket. But that comfort was nothing more than an illusion. A soft thud echoed from the living room. Sarah jolted upright, heart racing. She didn't want to jump at shadows, yet every creak of the floorboard seemed to taunt her, whispering secrets of the past. She forced her mind to settle. Nothing but the old house settling, she told herself. But then came the rustling, like whispers sighing through the walls. "It's just the wind," she murmured, her voice trembling. But the wind wasn't alone. Since Mia grinned one afternoon and claimed she saw a friendly man waving from outside their window, Sarah felt like her reality was crumbling. She shooed the notion away. Children's imaginations, vivid and wild, but a creeping chill gripped her each time she caught glimpses of movement outside. Her late husband's absence felt even sharper whenever Mia's innocent curiosity painted the outside world in hues of dread. Then came the flickering lights. At first, Sarah dismissed it as a friendly maintenance issue, but the sinister dance of the bulbs intensified. Every flicker seemed to twist shadows into clawed hands reaching out from the corners of her vision. Every night, they played their game, spiraling her into another sleepless frenzy. One night, between restless thoughts of her husband and growing fear, she called Mrs. Hargrove, their neighbor. "You know any history about Mr. Thompson?" she asked hesitantly. "Oh, sweetie, you really want to know?" "That man and his house better left unspoken," Mrs. Hargrove warned, her voice low, heavy with warnings. "Rumor has it he was involved in disappearances years ago." "Just rumors, of course. Don't let it bother you." But the nervous sweat trickling down Sarah's spine told her otherwise. She had to dismiss the tales and hold on to her sanity for Mia's sake. Yet whispers of the friendly man filled the room when Mia rambled on about her friend with each carefree giggle. How could she protect her daughter from something no one else could see? "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The cries of panic echoed in her mind when Mia vanished one foggy night, just after the power went out, swallowed whole by the darkness. "Mia!" she yelled, fear gripping her throat in icy fingers. Shivering, she raced through the house, desperately calling her name. But then a figure, twisted and wrong, glared back in the darkened window, a hollow smile lurking behind a face she could not recognize. Her heart pounded as if it wanted to escape. In that moment, Sarah stood on the brink of realization. The idyllic walls of their home had become a prison, holding memories far worse than loss. Was it just the wind, or was something far worse waiting in the depths? As a haunting lullaby played in the echoes of the house, Sarah realized she needed to uncover the truth. Was this friendly man a guardian or a predator? Shadows danced, and she knew that whatever lay ahead was waiting to claim something dear, and this mystery was far from over. The shadows outside shifted, blending with the inky blackness of the night. Sarah's frantic heart hammered in her chest, an urgent drum signaling rampant terror. Mia was gone. The house, now a mausoleum of memories, echoed her fear with every creaking wood and whispering wind. "Mia!" she called again, her voice a blend of desperation and despair. No answer. Only silence wrapped itself around her, thick and suffocating like the fog outside. Panic clawed at her throat, making it hard to breathe. She darted from room to room, her eyes dancing over every inch, as if hoping to summon her daughter's figure from hiding. Then she noticed it. The living room window opened just a crack. Wind rattled the frame, beckoning shadows to intrude. Was that how he had snatched her? The friendly man. A chill crept up her spine. The pulse in her temples throbbed mercilessly. She threw herself toward the window, yanking it shut as if sealing away the night's horrors. She couldn't let him take Mia. Not again. With trembling hands, Sarah stumbled back into the hallway. Then, a laugh. Soft and giggling. It came from Mia's room. Maybe it was a trick of her mind, but hope flickered in her chest. She rushed toward it, her feet pounding against the floor like an unsteady heartbeat. Mia! She yelled as she flung open the door, expecting to find her daughter clutching her stuffed bear, blissfully unaware of the dangers lurking. But the room was empty. Dim light pooled across the bed, untouched. The shadows there seemed to shift, as if mocking her despair. Sarah felt vertigo. She backed away, eyes scanning desperately, pushing against the panic rising within. Something cold brushed against her back, like a whisper of ice. She turned wildly. The figure stood at the far end of the hallway, its shape warped and indistinct. A grotesque plaything of shadow and malice. The hollow smile stretched wider, but it was void of warmth. It was a spectre, the friendly man. Frozen in fear, Sarah's breath came in ragged gasps. He moved closer, gliding across the floor, untroubled by the world. The smile never faded. It became clear he was waiting for her, teasing her heart with anxious anticipation. Mia! She managed to croak. Let her go. His laughter, a low and mocking sound, echoed through the hall, reverberating against the walls, wrapping around her like chains. The sound slithered through the air, making every hair on her body stand on end. Sarah took a step back, unsure of what he wanted, but certain she had to shield herself from this nightmare. Come play. He beckoned, his voice dripping with sickly sweetness, like honey laced with poison. I want to play with you. She shouted, defiance bubbling through her terror. But she knew the truth. Denial was no shelter. What shadow offered, it could take back only worse. The atmosphere thickened, swirling like fog engulfing her in dread. Sarah's heart raced as she struggled against the urge to flee, but she couldn't abandon the search for Mia. The damage could be irreparable if she let fear take over. The ghostly figure lurched forward, laughter reverberating like a sinister lullaby. Sarah's instincts screamed at her to run. She braved a glance over her shoulder. A door stood open at the end of the hall, invitingly ajar. She had to get to it. With a burst of adrenaline, Sarah dashed down the corridor, but before she reached the escape, he lunged forward, baring jagged teeth, his laughter echoing behind her like a twisted serenade. As she threw herself through the door, she could hear his final words trailing after her like smoke. You can't hide forever. Inside the room, she found Mia sitting up, her eyes wide, staring into the dark corner with a smile on her face. Mommy, look. He wants to play. Panic clawed at her throat. What had her daughter embraced? Within those shadowy walls came questions that throbbed and twisted, gnawing at her mind. Would Sarah be able to fight the darkness? Or had she opened a door that couldn't be closed? And just as that newly terrifying thought settled in, the lights flickered again, and the room plunged into chaos. What was lurking beyond the light, waiting for its chance? The lights flickered one last time before spiraling into darkness, leaving Sarah reeling with dread. Shadows stretched and twisted across the room, warping familiar shapes into monstrous forms. Mia's small figure sat at the edge of the bed, oblivious to the horror unfolding around her. The chilling giggles echoed once more, a haunting chorus that seemed to swell from the very walls. Mommy, can I play? Mia's voice, sweet yet sickeningly cheerful, sent a shiver coursing through Sarah. That's not Mia. She screamed, clutching her head as if to shake off the insanity creeping into her mind. What have you done to her? The spectral laughter subsided, morphing into a low humming, like a lullaby distorted through a broken record. The dark corner Mia pointed to seemed to breathe, pulsating with a malevolent energy. Lines of ancient runes flickered in and out of existence, symbols that whispered of curses and forgotten power. "Come and play, Mommy," Mia said again, sweetness turning sour as a few strands of shadowy hair dangled over her forehead, smothering the light that dared to touch her. "No. No." Sarah stumbled backward, her heart pounding against the walls of her chest. Fear tore through her as she wrestled with the urge to run, to find something, anything, that might save her daughter from this horror. The room lengthened, stretching like a cruel joke. She noticed the door behind her still ajar, but the hallway outside felt like a promise of death. Would escaping through that door lead to salvation, or only further into the arms of the friendly man? "Mommy, he's waiting for you." Mia's voice trailed off, her eyes still fixed on the corner. Without thinking, Sarah grasped a nearby lamp and hurled it toward the darkness. It shattered against the wall, exploding like a firework, and for a fleeting moment, shafts of light pierced the murky air. Shadows recoiled, revealing twisted figures that lurked in the edges, retreating as the light stung their form. "Mia!" she called out, hope flickering in the depths of despair. "Mia, stay with me." But her daughter remained still, locked in the thrall of whatever darkness held her captive. The shadow in the corner roared, a gaping maw filled with darkness that seemed to vibrate with hunger. "Let her go!" Sarah yelled, and for the first time, her defiance rang true. The entity paused, and Sarah felt a surge of strength coursing through her. "Play, or suffer." The voice echoed, both her daughter's and the creature's twisted together in an unholy union. Shadows fumbled around her, desperate to wrap her in their embrace, but she buckled down. In that moment, she had an idea fueled by desperation. She turned back to the corner as the shadows roiled, her voice steadying into determination. "Mia. This isn't a game. Look at me." Mia blinked, confusion flooding her features as if a fog were lifting. "Mommy?" she whispered, the smile faltering. "Yes. It's me." "Snap out of it." A piercing roar came forth from the depths. The shadow coalesced, and the darkness thickened, pressing in on Sarah. She could feel the chill scrape against her skin. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, but there was only Mia to save. With newfound resolve, Sarah took a step toward the dark corner. "You cannot have her." A crack rang out, disrupting the silence. The air hummed with tension, as if the world held its breath. Just then, a glow erupted from Sarah's hands, a desperate light born of the love for her daughter. But just as quickly, the glow flickered, and she felt cold fingers graze her neck, whispering secrets of despair. "Play forever or lose what you cherish." And as shadows swirled and the room trembled, Sarah realized even the coldest truths had consequences. Would the light be enough to banish the darkness? Or was she playing a game far more sinister than she ever imagined? The shadows danced closer, hungry for her fear. The darkness quivered, inching toward Sarah like a predator sensing its prey. Her heart raced, pulsing in time with the wild flicker of the glow emanating from her hands. Desperation clawed at her throat, every instinct told her to flee, yet her feet felt rooted to the carpet, heavy with dread. "Please, Mia," she cried, her voice breaking. "Come back to me." The shadows recoiled, but only momentarily. In that brief gap, Sarah felt an unsettling shift, a wave of chilling air that seemed to pull away any warmth in the room. The once familiar contours of the nursery melted grotesquely into sharp fear. The other toys, normally benign, twisted into grotesque shapes, seemingly animated by the dark force permeating the air. Suddenly, Mia let out a shrill laugh that sliced through the tension like glass. "He said you'd try to save me." The sound echoed, warped by some unseen distortion, floating eerily around the room. Gone was the innocent flutter of her daughter's voice, replaced by an unsettling mimicry. The sheer wrongness of it sent ice coursing through Sarah's veins. A hush blanketed the nursery. The shadows pooled into one thick mass, growing larger, looming over Sarah like a tsunami ready to crash. Her grip on the light faltered, dimming as the weight of terror settled into her bones. "No. Sarah screamed as the glow sputtered. Like a marionette cut from its strings, the air shifted. The cold seeped in deeper, wrapping her heart in a vice. The corners of the room shimmered, shifting, revealing figures so nameless and ghastly that they eclipsed all reason. "Mommy," Mia whimpered, and for a fleeting heartbeat, it was her daughter's voice again. But before Sarah could embrace that moment of clarity, the shadows surged, swallowing the sound in a viscous tide. The apparition of Mia twisted, still seated at the edge of the bed yet somehow further away, eyes glazed as if watching a distant dream. "Mommy, let us play." Her bottom lip trembled. "Mia, run." But the shadows had their hooks in her daughter's heart, binding her to this realm of nightmares. The dark figure quivered, its shadow self whispering to Sarah, "You want her back. Play along." The words dripped from its mouth, pooling into the ground around them, ink dark and tantalizing. Waves of despair washed over Sarah. She was losing this fight. Panic surged, stretching tighter across her chest. She thought of the lullabies she'd sung, the times they had danced around the living room. The love held within those fragile moments surged beneath the dread. She couldn't let it drown. With her strength waning, she thrust her hands forward. The light flared back to life, illuminating the nursery with a warm glow. In that instant, the shadowy figures retreated like cockroaches in the sun. But as quickly as it sparked, the light flickered again, wavering in the suffocating grip of the dark. "Mommy." Mia's voice shot through the air, this time layered with genuine fear. "I don't want to play with them. Stay with me, sweetie." Sarah gasped, feeling raw, exposed, as the walls seemed to close in, distorting, stretching like an elastic band nearing its breaking point, time warped, crawling forward like molasses. Each second dragged with the weight of desperation. Sarah could almost taste the salt of her own tears. "You can't have her," she shouted defiantly to the shadows. "You don't own her." A deep, rumbling laughter surged from the abyss, shaking the very air around her. "You think your love can save her? Love fades but our games last forever." Then, just like that, the lights died once more, plunging Sarah back into that stifling darkness. The maddening giggles resumed, echoing with the pulse of dread that enveloped her. In her mind's eye, she saw only silhouettes. Threats lurking behind every breath and heartbeat, but she couldn't give in. Not yet. Suddenly, she noticed a faint glow from the door where shadows had retreated. Something whispered from beyond that threshold, a flicker of hope. Or another trick. Summoning every ounce of will, Sarah turned toward the light. "Follow me, Mia," she called, stepping toward the door. But the shadows began to swirl, gathering once more. And with a surge of defiance, Sarah had to force herself to ask, was any choice left untainted, or was every escape a further plunge into horror? What awaited her beyond the door? As Sarah stepped toward the faint glow, goosebumps prickled her skin, a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. The darkness throbbed, each beat resonating with malevolence. Mia's frightened voice was pinned in Sarah's mind, only fueling her resolve. She had to reach her daughter. "Hold on, sweetie. I'm coming." Her voice trembled, but she pressed on, the light flickering like a heartbeat behind the door. The closer she got, the more distorted the shapes around her became. They slinked and coiled, clawing at her ankles, trying to pull her back into the suffocating abyss. Shadowy fingers grazed her skin, like cold whispers, urging her to turn away, to succumb to despair. Just a few steps more. In a flash, she grasped the door handle, feeling the warmth of the glow against her palm. The light pulsed brighter, shaking off the darkness like an old skin. With a fierce twist, she flung the door open. What lay beyond was unlike anything she imagined. A narrow hallway lined with mirrors shimmered under a pale, ghostly light. They reflected warping images, twisting reality, mocking her. Each glass panel echoed visions of her and Mia, laughing, playing, trapped in a moment that felt both warm and chillingly distant. "Mia!" she yelled, her voice scraping against the fragile air. But there was only silence in reply. The hallway felt endless, stretching out before her, yet it crawled over the surface of her sanity. Her heart raced with every beat, mirroring the shadows creeping at her back. She stepped forward, every footfall echoing, slicing through the silence like a knife. That S when she saw it. A flicker Mia's silhouette, perched on a ledge far down the hall. Relief surged through Sarah, greedily insatiable. Mia. She called again, reaching out. But the shadowy fingers stretched, weaving tighter around her. Mama, Mia's voice called, but it was thick with distortion, rippling as if coming from deep water. I don't like it here. As Sarah pushed forward, she felt an icy grip wrapping around her throat. The shadows were clawing at her, trying to anchor her to this labyrinth of suffering. Panic lanced through her. No, I want to let you take me. She snarled, shaking her head violently. Images in the mirrors warped again, distorting her reflection into grotesque shapes, a twisted depiction of a mother desperate and drained. Let her go. The words felt like a mantra, a plea she echoed as she fought against the tangled weight of despair, but the shadows grew bolder, almost playful, tugging at her. Lovingly sinister whispers slid into her ear, caressing her sanity like an ill-timed lullaby. Join us forever, it's safe here. She could feel herself swaying, teetering on the edge of their seductive call. But through the unease, Mia's trembling form remained at the end of the hall, twinkling like a distant star. There was flickering hope in that silhouette. Summoning her last vestiges of strength, she lunged forward, every muscle straining against the encroaching darkness. Shadows hissed and recoiled, squeezing tighter. Stay with me, Mia. The resolve in her voice felt like a lifeline, guiding her against the tide threatening to drag them both under. But right as she reached for Mia, the shadows surged, and before Sarah could make contact, the world shifted violently. The mirrors fractured, spilling out darkness that felt sentient, alive, consuming her from all sides. Game over, dear mother, the dark voice taunted, swirling in her thoughts like smoke. With a gasp, she found herself on the floor of the nursery again, the light dim and flickering. Was it all a trick? Was Mia still with her? She whipped her head around, scanning the empty room, heart thundering. The nursery felt different now, menacing and claustrophobic. The toys lay still, but the air cracked with a sinister energy. A new chill crept down her spine. Something had shifted. Then, from the corner of the room, a door creaked open, a breath of icy air rushing out. Sarah squinted into the dimness, holding on to the remnants of her fading light. What lay beyond that door? Was it the escape she yearned for, or another layer of this waking nightmare? Her breath hitched in her throat as an ethereal giggle floated through the space. But it wasn't Mia's. And as Sarah stepped toward the unknown, one thought burned in her mind: how much was she willing to sacrifice to find her daughter? The cold air wafted through the open door, wrapping around Sarah like fingers closing in on her throat. She hesitated, caught between the faint hope that lay beyond and the dark whispers curling around her resolve. That giggle, soft and taunting, sent a chill racing down her spine. It seemed to promise tales of horrors yet untold, but the sweet notes of laughter felt wrong, twisted. Mia. She breathed, stepping closer. The darkness hungrily awaited her. Every instinct warned her to retreat, yet her heart thudded with a desperate need to press forward. She could not leave her girl behind again, not when she could still feel Mia's lingering presence fluttering like a moth in the corners of her mind. With a shaky breath, she ventured into the dimly lit corridor. The air thickened as she crossed the threshold, heavy with a pungent odor that made her stomach churn. Every creaking floorboard echoed in the silence, each sound a grotesque reminder of her decision. Shadowy shapes danced on the walls, shifting silhouettes warped in her nightmares. With every step, they stretched and curled like living entities, trying to entice her into their dark game. Come play with us, Sarah, they hissed, their voices mingling with the eerie giggles. Drawing nearer to the end of the passage, a flicker of light caught her attention, shimmering like a beacon. It was an ornate mirror, radiating warmth. But as she locked eyes with her reflection, her stomach lurched. The woman staring back was a stranger, her features twisted with despair, eyes sunken and wild. Frantically, Sarah turned away, not wanting to hear that soft echo taunting her insecurity. "Mia! Where are you?" she shouted, each syllable filled with urgency. A reply echoed back, thin and wavering. "In the dark, Mama." It's so dark. Terror clawed at her heart, a raw panic. This corridor felt alive, pulsating with malevolence, and the shadows flickered closer still. An icy gust whipped past her, tugging at her clothes and pulling her back, demanding her surrender. But Sarah gritted her teeth, fighting against the suffocating pull. "I won't give up," she cried, forcing her legs to move. Another giggle sliced through the air. "Join us, Sarah, we have room for you too." As she stumbled through a door at the corridor's end, a sudden whirl of memories hit her like a freight train. Moments of laughter swirled into helpless cries. The twisted reflections in the mirrors began to coalesce into familiar faces. Each one, agonized and reaching, began whispering her name, urging her to join their eternal torment. "Mia!" She spun around, every nerve on fire, her breaths fast and shallow. "I'm here." But as she turned back to the door, it vanished. The walls of the room closed in around her, the shadows coiling like snakes waiting to strike. They hissed and swirled, amplifying her anguish, drowning her in despair. Just then, an indistinct shape moved near the far wall, a flash of hair familiar and soft, yet distorted by that darkness. "Mama, please help me. Hold on, I'm coming." Sarah wrestled against the tide of darkness pressing down around her, her heart a wild drum in her chest. Desperately she reached towards the murky silhouette, but as her fingers brushed the edge of the shadows, the figure recoiled, merging into the gloom with a high-pitched wail. "No!" The scream tore from her lips, raw and jagged. "Don't leave me!" Instincts kicked in, forcing her forward to claw at the darkness, to tear open the fabric of this torment. It writhed and fought back, blanketing her hands as she pulled desperately at the shadows that bound her. "You won't take her. You won't take us." But every cry echoed back in a twisted mockery, as the walls began to pulse tighter, straining against her silent resolve. As the last remnants of light flickered and died, Sarah felt herself drifting into the abyss, the familiar echo of Mia's voice calling her name unbroken. In the suffocating silence, a thought crossed her mind: perhaps nothing awaited her on the other side, just an eternal void of lost souls wandering, forever trapped in a darkness they couldn't escape. Maybe she was the next in line. The shadows tightened, and as her vision darkened, a new giggle arose, closer this time, laced with malice. "Welcome home, Sarah," and then, nothing. A deep, cavernous emptiness yawned open, promising to swallow them all whole. But could any part of her hope remain? If she was willing to fight, to claw her way back, would it be enough? Did she still possess the will to find her daughter, or was this the end of her twisted journey? A haunting whisper curled around her: "You must decide, stay or sacrifice." What did she choose? Sarah felt her heart pounding, an echo of dread echoing through the darkness. The shadows clawed at her, twisting her desperation into fear. She was losing herself, but amid the encroaching blackness, a single thought flickered: Mia needed her. Fight! The word erupted within her, igniting a frenzied energy. She willed her feet to move, planting them firmly on the cold floor. "Mia!" This time, the darkness seemed to ripple as her voice pierced through. With every shout, she felt the shadows recoil, the weight lifting just a fraction. She stumbled forward, her hands outstretched, fingertips brushing against ghostly patterns in the air, something that felt more solid, more real. "Help me, Mama!" There it was again, Mia's voice, filling her with both terror and resolve. It danced through the air, looping around her senses. The familiar sound of her daughter, filled with grief but tinged with a strange playfulness. What kind of game were they playing? "Hold on, sweetie. I'm coming." She fought against the icy tendrils wrapping around her legs, dragging her down. Heart racing, she plunged deeper into the suffocating shadows as they surged, clawing harder. In that moment, the distorted reflections in the mirror replayed memories of Mia, her laughter, innocent and bright, her small hands tugging at Sarah's shirt, drawing her in for a hug. Sarah fought against the interior tangles of the darkness, almost seeing her little girl reflected in her mind's eye. Mia! She cried again, desperation transforming into anger. Show yourself. The walls shuddered. The giggles transformed into a cacophony of horrid laughter from all corners, mocking, echoing. Shadows shifted, taking on forms, as if alive and aware. Faces appeared in the void, their eyes glowing with malicious delight. They were remnants of lost souls, trapped by the same darkness that threatened to consume Sarah. No! Stop! She shouted, tearing herself away from their clutches. You won't have her. Beyond the sneering faces, a pulse of light flickered, drawing her attention. It beckoned like a lighthouse, cutting through the fog of fear. Mia! Sarah screamed, surging forward with renewed vigor. With every ounce of her being, she pushed against the encroaching nightmare. The shadows hissed and writhed, branches of darkness reaching for her as if she were the last drop of light they yearned to snuff out. Mama, it hurts. The agony in Mia's voice brought tears to Sarah's eyes. Come back, please. That plea drove her onward, a red-hot blade through the haze of despair clinging to her. She reached for the glimmer, fingers brushing against something cool and smooth. A hand? With a jolt of hope, she grasped the source, pulling at it as if it were her lifeline. Form began to take shape, familiar and warm, but no. A sudden rush of wind pushed Sarah back, slamming her into the wall of shadows, scattering her thoughts into fractured glimpses of darkness. What do you want? She gasped, trying to battle the weight pressing her down. Silence. Then, a chorus of whispers, soft and sinister. You cannot leave without knowing the truth about her. Just as she began to comprehend their words, the shadows curled around her body, weaving in closer. The giggles morphed into sobs, haunting reminders of a power she could barely grasp. The pulsating glow shifted, revealing a doorway within the shadow, its edges flickering and warped. Sarah's instincts roared, but one ominous thought took root. What truth awaited her on the other side? Would she find Mia there, or even worse, a dark revelation that shattered everything she believed? Let me go. She pleaded, but the shadows tightened their grip. Outside the door, the whispers grew louder, swirling into a maddening hymn of secrets yet uncovered. Just as she thought about breaking through, a low voice coiled around her. Are you ready to sacrifice everything to know? The glimmer in her grasp pulsed, and Sarah's heart stopped. Something told her she'd never be the same again if she stepped through that doorway. Fear and resolve warred within her, every breath feeling like it could be her last. What lay ahead could terrify her soul or breathe life back into their doomed existence. But she had to know. What would she choose? The shadows swirled around her like a storm, thick and suffocating. Sarah felt a feral urge to resist, to scream once more, yet something deep inside her twisted with dread. This was no ordinary choice. Stepping through that doorway could mean surrendering everything she held dear. Mia! She cried, her voice piercing the veil of silence, but instead of a response, she was met with the sound of children's laughter, melodic yet sickeningly twisted. The very air around her vibrated with anticipation, teasing her with echoes of the past intermingled with sinister whispers. She felt the shadows brush against her skin like icy fingers, probing, searching for weakness. She tugged against their embrace, the sensation of being pulled into a void igniting her panic. But then, like a beacon, the glimmer in her grasp brightened. Somehow, it felt alive, pulsating with energy that synchronized with her heartbeat. Was this a way out? Or deeper into the dark? Choose. The voice hissed, resonating in the hollow space. Your truth awaits. With a surge of desperation, Sarah moved toward the door, its edges pulsating dimly against the devouring darkness. She hesitated, wanting to look back for just a moment, hoping to glimpse Mia waiting on the other side. The laughter morphed again, shifting into something darker, mocking her hesitation. Don't be afraid, Mama, the whispers twisted Mia's innocent voice into something far more chilling. Embrace the truth. With her heart racing in her chest, Sarah lunged forward, the need to protect her daughter overwhelming all else. The door swung open, revealing a world that flickered with the same unnatural light. It expanded and contracted like a wounded heartbeat. As she crossed the threshold, a pulse of raw energy shot through her. The darkness around her swirled violently, and gusts of wind filled the space, whispers crashing into screams. She stumbled, metal scraping against her leg as she crashed onto a cold, unforgiving surface. Breathless, Sarah blinked, her surroundings morphing into a distorted reflection of her home. Furniture was overturned and the walls whispered secrets hidden from the living. Dust motes danced in the flickering light, revealing images that sent chills down her spine. Mia! She wheezed, panic rising as she scrambled to her feet. Every corner of the room beckoned to her. A chill surged up her spine as she caught sight of an old photograph pinned to the wall. It was her family, smiling and whole, untouched by the shadows. But something was wrong. Mia's face had two sharp, angular features, almost as if it had changed over time. Had it always been this way? What did you want? Sarah shouted into the stillness, feeling the heat of anger boiling within her. What did you take from us? The atmosphere thickened, shadows coiling tighter around her. They seemed to listen, to revel in the power they held. Then, as her doubt wrapped around her heart, the photographs began to pulse like living things, frames shifting, images distorting. A soft, broken sob echoed from the corner, pulling her attention. Mia, scrambling toward the sound, she rounded the debris of their once happy living room, her heart hammering in her chest. The air grew colder, each breath crystallizing like ice. Each step forward felt weighted, caught in a web of dread. Mama Mia's voice was barely more than a whisper now, lost in the disquiet. The shadows trembled, creating a path toward the source. Adrenaline spurred her on, forcing her to push past her own fear. But as she drew closer, she felt the cold grip of despair clench around her heart. No. With one last leap, she reached the other side, her breath hitching as she stared into the place where her daughter should be. But the figure before her wasn't Mia. The shadows had twisted the image into something grotesque, dark eyes locked onto her with an intensity that sent a chill down her spine. Where is my daughter? Sarah gasped, a sudden wave of icy dread stealing her voice. The twisted figure grinned, a horrific smile stretching across its face. She is lost, just like all the others. Sarah's heart sunk. Each of those whispers around her were lost children, all waiting to be found. But what would they cost her? Stay with us, it whispered, the shadows tightening their grip. It wasn't just a choice anymore. It was a trap, and she was the bait. As she wrestled with her next move, the shadows churned into a despairing tumult, drowning out her thoughts. Mama, where are you? The soft, familiar voice tugged at her heart, stronger now as if threading through the veil of deception. Sarah stood frozen, gazing into the abyss before her. One choice, one moment, and it could change everything. Could she still save Mia? Or would she become just another whisper in the dark? The air thickened again, crackling with the weight of unfulfilled promises. What lay beyond the shadows? The truth awaited her, but could she face it? The shadows surged forward, weaving through her mind with sinister intent. Sarah fought to maintain clarity, to hold on to hope amid the encroaching despair. Mia, she screamed again, louder this time, more desperate. The shadows laughed, a cacophony that echoed in the dim light. Come closer, Mama, the grotesque figure beckoned, its voice a ghastly parody of her daughter's. Join us where it's safe, where it's warm. The invitation stirred something deep in her, a reckless longing to embrace the darkness, but she fought back against it. Each word twisted in her gut, a reminder of what she stood to lose. Let her go. Sarah cried, her fists clenching at her sides. The shadows twisted around her, suffocating, tightening their grip as if they were sentient beings with a vicious will. With a sudden burst of fury, Sarah lunged at the figure. Yet, as she did, the floor beneath her churned, transforming into a thick fog that threatened to swallow her whole. She stumbled, bringing her hands up to shield her eyes, the world around her blurring into a tempest of dark shapes. "Is this what you want?" the figure taunted, its grin stretching impossibly wide. "To fight? It's futile. All that is left of you is grief." Sarah gritted her teeth, stubbornness burning in her chest. "I want to let you take her." She tore her gaze away, willing herself to focus on the fading echoes of Mia's voice. "Mia!" The cries bounced off the warped walls, growing fainter like a candle flickering in the wind. Desperation clawed at her throat. She turned back toward the figure, eyes alight with defiance. The shadows swirled, momentarily revealing glimpses of other children caught in their grasp, each twisted face reflecting terror and longing. Their eyes pleaded for salvation, and it struck Sarah like a thunderbolt. She wasn't just fighting for Mia, she was fighting for them all. "You're wrong," Sarah shouted, finding strength in her conviction. "I want to let you keep her. She is not yours." The shadows recoiled, hissing like a serpent threatened, the grotesque figure snarled in response. "You think your love can shatter the abyss? You're mistaken, dear Sarah. This is where she belongs." The air thickened as the laughter intensified, forming a storm that threatened to engulf her. The darkness pressed in, drowning her resolve momentarily, until the vivid memory of Mia's laughter surged forth. "No!" Sarah cried with renewed vigor. "You don't get to claim her." The room shook as she spoke, her words imbued with raw emotion. To her surprise, the pulsating shadows flickered, momentarily splintering as though her voice had splashed cold water onto a flame. The figure faltered, its form wavering as if caught between two realities. "Let her be free." Sarah's voice rang out, rippling through the chaos like a ripple on a still pond. She marched forward, pushing through the cold blanket of shadow, every step a battle against her dwindling strength, and then, she heard it the sound of soft giggles, pure and innocent. It was Mia. "Mama!" The shadows writhed, angry and chaotic, while a narrow pathway began to open before her. She could feel the warmth of the other side, a light piercing the dark in a way that felt almost tangible. She took a step, then another, the cold retreating with each movement. But suddenly, the grotesque figure surged forward, stretching its arm toward her, fingers elongating like claws ready to snare her. "You cannot escape. You'll become one of us." Panic shot through her veins. Could this really be the moment, the chance to pull Mia back into the light? With a fierce determination, Sarah lunged toward the light, every fiber of her being echoing Mia's name. "Stay away!" She roared as the dark swirled around her, but she pushed forward, heart pounding, reaching for the familiar voice. Just as she felt the brush of Mia's small hand against hers, the shadows screamed, a sound so horrific it froze her blood. "Your truth awaits!" echoed through the dark. A final ripple of energy surged around her, pulling her backward, back to the edge of darkness. Would she leave with Mia? Or would the shadows claim them both? The darkness grew heavier as she clung to the fading light, reality blurring into chaos once more. Would love be enough to conquer this abyss? No answers came as the world around her began to dissolve, the remnants of her home melting into a nightmare from which she could not wake. Sarah pressed on, fueled by Mia's voice, a lifeline pulling her through the chaos. With fierce determination, she clawed her way toward the warm glimmer of hope Mia needed her. Each step felt like wading through molasses, shadows gripping her ankles, trying to drag her back into their suffocating embrace. "Mama!" Mia's voice, pure and sweet, soared through the dark. It pierced the shadows like a beacon. Sarah gritted her teeth, leaning into the warmth that seeped through her fingers. The grotesque figure loomed closer, a twisted sneer distorting its face, but Sarah's determination swelled. "Let her go." The words erupted from deep within, drenched in the power of motherhood's love. The shadows hissed, recoiling as if bitten. Sarah could feel their power weakening. "You don't own her." The entity lunged forward, dark tendrils swirling around Sarah like a tempest, but she pushed forward. She was a mother, and nothing could stand in her way, not even this monster. "Mia!" she cried out, every syllable fueled by the unbreakable bond they shared. In that instant, the walls of darkness began to shudder, fracturing as the light pulsed around her. Memories of laughter, games they played, and the warmth of Mia's tiny hand in hers surged through her like an electric current, igniting every ounce of strength left within. "We will not be prisoners," she shouted defiantly. The figure faltered, a flicker of panic crossing its grotesque features. For the first time, the shadows hesitated, pulled back, as if they could sense the power of Sarah's love. Each step she took sent shockwaves through the depths of despair, pushing the dark farther away. The light beckoned, growing brighter as if recognizing the fierce love radiating from her heart. "Mama, please." Mia's plea echoed through the darkness again, more desperate now. Sarah could almost see the shimmering outline of her daughter at the end of the corridor, a child lost but not forgotten. "I'm coming, sweetie." Sarah pushed forward, her chest tight with resolve. The grotesque figure lunged one last time but fell back, as the bright warmth folded over Sarah, like a protective shield, pulsing with life and hope. "Game over," Sarah roared, the shadows finally recoiling. "You don't get to keep us." With that, she raced toward the light, reaching for Mia with every ounce of love she could summon. Their hands finally met, and warmth surged through them like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. The shadows recoiled as if scalded, clamoring and screeching, but they were powerless against the bond connecting mother and daughter. "Let us go home," Sarah shouted, yanking Mia close. The pulsating energy flickered again, but this time, it was imbued with the love that had fueled Sarah's every step. Holding Mia tightly, she pushed through the remaining shadows, defiance coursing through her veins like wildfire. As they crossed the threshold, the nursery materialized around them, fractured yet whole. Everything felt vibrant, alive again. The laughter that had echoed with malice now became a harmonious echo of joy, their joy. "Mama! You came for me." Mia beamed, squeezing her tightly, pure innocence radiating from her every pore. "I'll always come for you," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face, relief washing over her like a cleansing tide. Embracing her daughter, they stood together in the light, shadows retreating like whispers fading in the dawn. The air felt lighter, free of the heavy dread that had haunted them for so long. With darkness constrained and banished, Sarah finally let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Maybe the undertow of the past would never wholly fade, but she'd face it, together with Mia. As they stepped away from the remnants of their nightmarish ordeal, a street lamp flickered outside, illuminating the world in gentle hues of dawn. Life awaited them, untainted and beautiful. And as they emerged, hand in hand, into the warmth of a new day, Sarah realized something profound. Their journey through darkness hadn't just forged a bond, it had rewritten the rules of their love. This was their freedom. It was time to embrace the light. Now, let us take a moment here. If you want to witness stories that delve into the heart of fear and the fight against darkness, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for the channel, so smash that like button to feed the algorithm. And don't just keep it to yourself, flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this conclusion. What did you think of Sarah's journey? Did she make the right choice? Lastly, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these simple actions.